There's a great story or parable in John chapter 10, verses 11 through 16, where Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. But I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen, and I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd." There are basically two scenarios here in this chapter that Jesus introduces. The imagery that he introduces in the first scenario, which is earlier in the chapter, and we didn't take the time to read. This scenario is of the sheep and the sheep pen in the village, and that he, Jesus, is the gate for the sheep. We find that in verse 7. And that through him, the sheep go in and out and find pasture. This gives a sense of safety and security. Thieves and robbers only come to steal, kill, and destroy. And here we have a picture of death, but through Jesus, we have life, and we have it to the full, or we have it more abundantly. Now, it might seem a little confusing to us at first to think about this, that Jesus is both the shepherd and the gate. But when we look at the next scene that Jesus paints for us, maybe we will understand just a little better. You see, in this second scenario, Jesus speaks of the threat of wolves who come to attack the sheep. This introduces a different picture than that of the sheep in the village, because wild animals would rarely come into the villages, even at night. And so we understand from Jewish context and history, this scene is that of the shepherd in the wilderness. Because often as the season moved on and the pastures near the village became dry and barren, the shepherd would have to lead the flock further and further away in order to find food for the sheep. And that required them to stay in the wilderness overnight with the sheep. Here, Jesus draws a sharp contrast between the shepherd of the sheep and a hired hand. The true shepherd, or the good shepherd, would stand and fight off the wolf and protect the sheep, but the hired hand would run away and abandon the flock because he doesn't actually care for the sheep. He's just there for a paycheck. The shepherd boy David comes to mind. Remember him telling Saul how he killed the lion and the bear who tried to carry sheep off from his flock? Now that's a good shepherd. And here's the statement from John chapter 10 and verse 11. Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep." He goes on, and look what he says in verse 15. He says, "Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life," there it is again, "I lay down my life for the sheep." So this is significant. Of course, we know it's significant because Jesus ultimately gave his life on the cross for us. But it's also significant in light of what Jesus said earlier in the chapter about being the gate. Because when he said, "I'm the gate," well, this is what he meant. Here's the picture he was painting for them, and he's painting for us today as well. You see, when the shepherd was with the flock in the wilderness overnight, he didn't have a pen to put the sheep in, and so he had to make do. So the shepherd would build a makeshift sheep pen with brush and with stones that he was able to physically move. He would build it up as high as he could, but would leave an opening for the sheep to go in at night and to come out in the morning. Have you got the picture? Okay, so here's what he would do with the opening. He would build his fire out in front of the opening a ways to discourage other animals from coming. And then he himself would lay down to sleep across the opening to his makeshift sheep pen. The shepherd was also literally the gate. I love that picture. I think it's amazing. Jesus cares for you and I like that. He is our protection. He is our gate, and he's our shepherd. He sacrifices for the sheep. He lays down his life. In Isaiah 53, we have this picture of the suffering servant. And it prophesies there that the Messiah will lay down his life, that he will take on himself our pain and bear our suffering, and that he will die, that he will be pierced for our transgressions and crushed for our iniquities, and then eventually end up in a grave. And all of this will happen because of our wandering ways. Look what it says in verse 6. It says, "We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all." This is such a powerful picture. There really is no greater love. John says it in chapter 15 and verse 13, than for someone to lay down their life for a friend. And my friend, Jesus has done exactly that for you.